Thank you.
As a cop, please note. Ms. Zandile Khumalo, it's witness number 1 on the list.
Where's Ms. Zandile Khumalo? The registrar will swear you in. Which language do you speak, ma'am? I'll call him Slow. Oh, okay. Yeah, swear the witness in.
Please state your full names. Any objection to the oath? Do you swear that the evidence about to give the copy is the truth, nothing but the truth? Please raise your right hand.
Thanks. You must speak up a bit. I'm a bit deaf. Okay, Mr. Baloyi.
As a cop, please. Ms. Khumalo, do you know the deceased in this matter, Mr. Senzo Robert Meyiwa?
Yes, I do know him.
How do you know him?
I know him through my sister Kelly. They had a relationship.
Do you know as to when this relationship started?
I-relationship yabo yaqala mangaphazami phakathi ka 2012 no 2013.
If I'm not mistaken, between 2012 and 2013.
Were there any offsprings born of this relationship?
Kuba khona uyedwa uThimo
Yes, one, Tingo,
And how old is Tingo?
9 this year.
Do you know where the deceased Mr. Meyiwa resided in 2014?
bahlala kanye noKelly eMalberton.
He was staying with Kelly in Malberton.
And Malberton is in Johannesburg, is
He
it?
said, that's correct.
And in 2014, where was your parental house?
Ekhaya Spruit View, 13511 Putlanong Street, Phosphorus section Umzam.
State View, 13511, Putlanong Street, in Mzama section, Phosphorus.
On the 26th of October 2014, a certain incident occurred that led to your coming to court to testify today regarding the deceased, is that correct?
Witness confirms that it is so.
Can you tell this court in your own words what happened, if you can start with the events of the morning of the 26th of April 2014?
Sasise Malberton kwaKelly noSenzo, kuyimina uSenzo uKelly nomthokozisi owayelale khona the night before.
We were in Malberton at Kelly and Senzo's place. It was myself, Kelly, Senzo, as well as Ntogo, who had slept there the night before.
Who is Ntogo?
Ntogo, man.
Umthokozisi umngani kaSenzo.
Ntogozisi is Senzo's friend.
Yes, and you yourself, where did you sleep the previous night?
When
Nami nilale khona eMalberton.
I also slept in Malberton.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then ke ekuseni kwakhona lapho kwakuzoba nephathi kamngani oyedwa odlala ibhola noSenzo uRoy Mahamud.
And then on that day, there was going to be a party of one of Senzo's friends and teammate, Roy Mahamudza.
And then at the same time bekuzoba futhi ne-performance uKelly wayeperforma eDorobheni.
There was also going to be, at the same time, there was also going to be a performance where Kelly was going to perform at the Dorothy Nyembe
And where is Dorothy Nyembe?
eSoweto.
in Soweto.
What type of place is it?
Injengepark kanje.
Yeah, it's like a park.
Yes, you may proceed.
There.
And then ke savuka ke ngalolo suku salungiselela ukuya elantuzeni emsebenzini ngoba nami ngisebenza noKelly.
We then woke up that day or that morning, preparing to go to work because I was also working with Kelly.
And if you say you're working with Kelly, what do you mean? What type of work does Kelly do?
uKelly umculi.
She's a singer.
And just for record purposes, her surname?
It's
Khumalo.
Khumalo.
And you yourself?
Wena?
Mina ngangenza okuningi behind i-brand kaKelly, ngangenza i-management ngiphinde ngibe umdansi ngiphinde ngibe i-club singer.
Asithathe kancane. I was doing a lot for Kelly's brand. I was a dancer, was a management, and a singer, backup singer.
Sasisuka ke sonke sangena emotweni eyodwa uKelly wathi soqala sishiye uSenzo la azobe yakhona ephathini.
We all then left in the same vehicle. Kelly then said we would first drop Senzo where he was going, that is now at the party.
Which vehicle did?
Sasebenzisa i-X6.
The X6.
And to whom did it belong?
Engikwaziyo ukuthi babeyisayinile bobabili uKelly noSenzo.
What I know is that both of them signed for it, Kelly and Senzo.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then sasuka lapho ke masifika endaweni le phathi uSenzo wehla wathola ukuthi abakaqali.
When we arrived at the venue of where the party was going to be held, Senzo alighted and discovered that they hadn't started.
And then ke sasuka lapho sangena emotweni saqhubeka sonke saya eDorothy Nyembe ukuthi bazophinde babuye futhi.
From there, we then all got into the vehicle and then proceeded to Dorothy Nyembe. They said that they would come back again.
And then ke masifika eDorothy Nyembe uKelly saperforma noKelly and then masuka lapho ke sahamba.
Upon arrival at Dorothy Nyembe, myself and Kelly performed, and from there we left.
What time did you leave?
Mangikhumbula mhlawumbe isikhathi kwakula ko 2-3 lapho nje.
If I remember, the time it was between 2 and 3, around there.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then masisuka lapho sadlula komunye umuzi uSenzo wathi kuhlala umakamngani wakhe ufuna ukuyomupha imali.
From there, we went past via this house where Senzo said that the mother of his friend was staying. He said that he wanted to give her money.
And then ke masisuka lapho ngabona sihamba siya ngase straight eKatle home.
From there, I saw us traveling towards Sprite in Katlehong.
Yes, and why did you travel to Katlehong?
Okokuqala ngangekho sure ukuthi siyelana eKatle home kodwa then later ngathola ukuthi kukubo kaMthokozisi.
Earlier or before, I wasn't certain as to why we were going to Katlehong, but I later on discovered that it was at Ntogo's home. Ntogo's home.
Phakathi naphakathi uKelly bekhuluma noma uma ekhuluma noKelly bethi uma singeza sizodla.
In between, Kelly was communicating with my mother or our mother, and our mother was telling her that we should come over and eat.
There's a court pleases. There was, if I can just ask you not to put that on record, we'll just ask that you be struck off the record. There was this communication between Ms. Zandile Khumalo and your mother, and what happened further?
Yeah.
Sase siyahamba ke siya ekhaya masixoxa kulantuzwa uMthokozisi.
After we were done with Ntogo's, we then went home.
Yes, you may proceed.
Yebo.
And then sahamba ke sisonke vele emotweni siphelele yini uMthokozisi uSenzo uKelly sesiku highway in3 sibheke ekhaya.
We then proceeded together. All of us were in the vehicle. Myself, Ntogo's, Senzo, and Kelly, and we were on the N3 highway on our way home.
Ngiyezwa ke belokhu bekhuluma uSenzo ekhuluma noTumelo nakhona ngithole after ukuthi bekhuluma noTumelo.
There was also a conversation between Senzo and Tumelo, and also there I heard afterwards that he was talking to Tumelo.
Yes. And who's Tumelo?
One Tumelo
uTumelo umngani weSenzo futhi naye.
is also Senzo's friend.
Yes.
And then ke ngezwa uKelly etshela uSenzo ukuthi
You may not disclose what other people said. What happened after this conversation between the deceased and Tumelo?
and then ngabona sesithatha uTumelo ku highway of ramp yase Springfield.
I then just saw when we were picking up Tumelo, the off-ramp of the straight view off-ramp on the highway.
Do you know Tumelo's surname?
Madlala.
Sase sehla ke siya ekhaya and then mase sifika ngaphandle kwegate ngaphandle and then sathe ingcono sithole iphuzo sase siya kaKhwembu Tavern.
We then proceeded to my home. And then when we arrived at home and when we were still outside the gate, we then decided to get drinks and then we went to Kwembu's Tavern.
And more or less, what time was it?
Mhlawumbe sithi ngo-4, 4:30.
Let's say 4, 4:30.
Sasifika-ke kwaKhwembu ngaphandle and then kwakhona ukuthi kumele siyothenga iphuzo and then kwathola ukuthi uKevin noSenzo abana cash and then mina ngangino-400 rand esikhwameni sasebenzisa wona.
We then arrived outside the Kwembu's Tavern and then it came out that Senzo and Kelly did not have money on them and then I had 400 rands. We then used that 400 rands.
And then kwehla mina noMthokozisi sangena kwaKhwembu.
Myself and Mthokozisi alighted and we went into Kwembu's.
Yes, it's fine. Is it correct that you bought drinks at Kwembu's Tavern? What happened thereafter?
Sasesibuyele ekhaya-ke safike sangena bapaka imoto sangena endlini.
We went back home. We arrived there, they parked the car and we went into the house.
Are you able to give a time estimate when you arrive again at your rental house?
kwaKhwembu asithatha ngesikhathi eside so mhlawumbe kungahle kube 10 minutes njalo.
We didn't take much of a time at Kwembu's, about 10 minutes or so. Correct.
Masifika-ke endlini sathola ungavele khona and then wasiwelcome and then wayesiyaphaka.
Upon arrival at home, we found our mother was there. She welcomed us and then she dished up.
Just before you proceed, when you got to your parental house, where did you sit?
Sahle ku-dining room.
In the dining room.
Do you still remember the seating arrangement there in the dining room?
Yebo ngisakhumbula.
Yes, I still do.
If you are shown a photo, will you be able to explain that?
Yes.
If I can ask that photo 57 be shown to the witness. My lord, that will be photo number 57 of Exhibit D. The photo album of Lieutenant Colonel Msako.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. If you can use that photo to explain how you were seated.
Okay, lapha eqaleni ngaku-stand kwakuhleli uTumelo.
Okay, on the left, okay. Witness person to the left at the right there on the left side and next to the stand. Tumelo sat there.
And then eceleni kwakhe kwakuhleli uMthokozisi.
Next to Tumelo sat Mthokozisi.
Just for record purposes, is it correct that there are two couches facing each other?
Amakhawu amabili abhekene.
That's correct.
Yes. So just put on record, which couch are you referring to?
Sikhuluma ngaleli yakwa-left.
I'm referring to the one on the left.
And then eceleni kwamthoko kwakuhleli uSenzo.
Next to Mtogo was Senzo. Senzo sat next to Mtogo.
Then eceleni kwaSenzo kwakuhleli uKelly la ku-ottoman.
And then Kelly was seated next to Senzo on the ottoman.
And then ngapha kuleli kwa-right mina noma sasisherisha lona leli kwa-right.
And then on the couch on the right hand side, myself and my mother were sharing that couch.
And how were you seated?
Nanhlezi kanjani?
Uma wayehleli ngale ngenhla kwase eduzane kwe-stand.
My mother was seated on the other side next to the stand,
And then mina ngangihleli eceleni kwakhe uma ngikwazi ukuthi ngasemnyango.
and I sat or was seated next to her as if we were going towards the door.
You mentioned that your mother dished up, and what happened?
And then mayiqeda ukuphaka sadla and then emva kokudla-ke imina engangilokhu ngithatha iphuzo efrizeni nginikeza abantu abasivakashile.
After she dished, we ate, and after we finished eating, I was the one that was taking the drinks from the freezer, the deep freezer, and giving to the people that had visited us.
And then at the same time kwakudlala isoccer e-TV. Mangizama ukukhumbula kwakuyi-English soccer.
At the same time, there was a game, a soccer game match that was on TV. If I remember well, it was English soccer.
And then ke saqhubeka sisahleli kumnandi kunjalo, and then at the same time ngangikhuluma noLongwe efonini via SMS.
Whilst we sat there, we were having fun, and at the same time, I was chatting to Ulongwe via SMS.
And who's Longwe?
uLongwe kwakuyi-boyfriend yami ngaleso sikhathi,
Longwe was my boyfriend at the time.
And what is his surname?
uThwala.
Twala.
And then masiba ntambamanyana, and then ngamtshela uLongwe ngathi hayi ungeza ekhaya because ubebuzile ukuthi ngikuphi, ngamtshela ukuthi ngimuSenzo Mkheli sisekhaya.
Then when it became later, I then informed Longwe, you can now come to my home because he had asked where I was, and then I told him that I was at home with Senzo and Kelly.
And then ke uLongwe wasingithumela i-SMS wathi ungaphandle.
Longwe then sent me an SMS saying that he was outside.
Yes, what time was it more or less?
Mhlampe kwakuya la for 6 to 7 lapho.
Maybe around 6 before 7.
And then ngabuza uma ukuthi ukudla kusakhona yini sithi uLongwe eza, wathi uma hayi kusakhona ukudla kodwa kuzodingeka isopho ukuthi ngongeze.
I then asked my mother whether there was still food left because Longwe is coming. She then said, yes, there is still food, but I will need soup in order to eat.
It's fine. You had a conversation with your mama regarding food, and then what happened?
And then ke uma wacela uKelly ukuthi ayothenga isopho.
My mother then requested Kelly to go and buy the soup.
And then uKelly wasithatha uSenzo makusanjalo kanti uLongwe naye uzongithumela i-SMS ukuthi usengaphandle, and then nami ngase ngiyashintsha ngafaka i-tracksuit ngase ngiyaphuma.
Kelly then took Senzo with her, and then at the same time, that's when Longwe sent me an SMS saying that he was outside. I then got dressed in a tracksuit. I also went out.
And then ke mengiphumela ngaphandle ngabona uKelly emotweni yothatha ama-coins, and then mina ngaya emotweni kaLongwe la ngifice khona ngathola uSenzo bexoxa noLongwe.
Kelly then went to the car to go and get some coins. I then went to Longwe's car where I found Senzo and Longwe chatting.
And how did Longwe arrive there to Parental House?
Wafika ngemoto.
In a vehicle,
Yeah, what type of vehicle?
Kwakuyi-Polo Vivo ebomvu.
a red Polo Vivo.
And then uKelly wafika wathatha uSenzo banyuka baya esitolo ngathatha uLongwe esangena endlini.
Kelly came, she took Senzo and they went up to the shop, and then I took Longwe. We went inside the house.
And then ngena noLongwe endlini wafika uLongwe wabingelela.
I went into the house with Longwe. When Longwe arrived or got into the house, he greeted.
Kodwa lapha emnyango kwakukhona uDumelo noMthokozisi.
But there at the door, there was Tumelo and Mtogozisi.
Which door are you referring to?
Umnyango wasekitchen.
The kitchen door.
And then ke wangena uLongwe sahlala phansi, and then uKelly wabuya nesopho uma walungisa masinyane wamphakela, then uLongwe wadla.
Kelly came back with the soup. My mother prepared it and then dished up for him, and he ate.
Lo muntu wayemusha erumini kwakuwuLongwe, so wafika wahlala ngapha kule sofa le ebengihleli kuyona ekwa-right, kodwa mawuya ngasefrijini.
As the two couches are facing each other, and we came back, everyone sat in exactly the same positions that they were seated in before. The only person that was new was Longwe, and then he sat on the couch, which is on the right hand side, but as you go towards the door, the kitchen door, or the door of the kitchen.
From where you were seated, could you see into the kitchen?
Kunembobo encanyana nje la ukwazi khona ukubona ukuthi ubone mhlambe umehluko between umnyango uma uvala noma uvula.
Yes, where I was seated there is just this little opening where you are able to see when the door opens and closes.
We just want to show you photo 64 of Exhibit D. Can you just demonstrate your evidence using that photo?
Nasi space leso isiphakathi kwefridge nobunda ola.
Here's the space the witness pointing to the photo between between the fridge and the wall.
And just for record purposes, using that photo, just show where you were seated.
Mina bengihleli
I was seated here, so we can come into the couch, just on the left.
And then ke masisahleli kanjalo uKelly uyena wayeme ngenyawo exoxa ijoke.
Whilst we were seated like that, Kelly was the one that was standing and she was sharing a joke.
Where was she standing?
Wayeme nje lesithombe kubonakala.
It's not visible on this picture.
I just want to show you photo 57. Are you able to indicate there?
What is
Photo
number?
57 of exhibit D, man. 57.
57.
Yes. 57,
Asibonakali kodwa
exhibit D.
passage alibonakali.
I can't see the passage on this one.
Aha. Sibu right.
Photo 64 of exhibit D, man.
Yeah.
Are you able to demonstrate on that photo?
Yes, Thomas.
Hayi. Alibonakali.
No,
That
not on this
57
one.
ubungconywana.
I think 57 was much better.
So more or less where
Ube mala. Asekhoneni ekuqaleni kwe dining room.
At the corner here, it is at the start of the dining room.
yes. Yes, you may proceed.
Lokho iqhubeka ke esixoxela ijoke leyo nathi sihleka kumnandi.
She kept on sharing this joke for us, and we were also having fun. We were laughing.
Just a moment. There's also a sketch plan which forms part of exhibit D. Now, the sketch plan is just before the photos of exhibit D. We'll try and number the bundle as we go along. Are you able to perhaps indicate in the sketch plan more or less where Kelly was?
uKelly wayemela
Kelly was standing here. Let's continue.
la ekuqaleni nje kwe dining room.
It is just at the start or the beginning of the dining room.
And just indicate there on the sketch plan the two couches.
Iwona lawo mabili.
Where at this pointing goes, these are the two couches.
Yes. Thank you, you may proceed.
And then ithe makusenjalo ke ngabona kuvuleka umnyango wasekitchen.
Whilst at that, I then saw the kitchen door opening.
Can you just explain to the court how you saw that?
Kanjani?
Ngoba la ngangihleli khona umnyango kulela passage ebuncane uyakwazi ukubona umnyango mawuvuleka kodwa awuzukubona ukuthi ubani ongenayo ngoba umnyango uvulekela ngaphakathi.
Because from where I was seated, you are able to see when the door opens, but you are unable to see as to who is coming or who is opening because the door opens to the inside,
Unless ke yazazavala umnyango.
unless the person then closes the door.
Once again, we just want to draw your attention to yes, you can testify using that photo.
So mina ngangihleli la so mangihleli kulo sofa lo phakathi nendawo uyakwazi ukubona umnyango through leli passage encanyana umnyango mawuvuleka.
I was seated, okay, from the foot, I was seated on this sofa, which is on this photo 64 in the middle, and when seated there, you are able to see through that opening when the door opens.
And then kwathi masisahleli kanjalo ngapopola ke mina ngifuna ukubona ukuthi ubani obeqeda ukuvula umnyango enganophili.
I then peeped through just to see as to who opened the door without knocking.
Yes, what time was it more or less?
Mhlawumbe sithi lapho 7:30 to 8.
Say about 7:30 before 8.
And then ngithe mangipopola ngabona abantu besilisa ababili.
When I peeped, I saw two male persons.
Where did you see them?
Ubabona kuphi?
Khona la epassage.
Right here at the passage, you can Witness pointing photo number 64.
Kwase kuthi lo oyedwa umfishane wama-dreads wamaphambili uyena ovele ungene kuqala.
The short one with the dreadlocks stood in front. Sorry, he was the first one to come in.
How was visibility at this stage?
Kwakubonakala nje kahle ngoba endlini sasilayithiwe vele.
It was very clear because the lights were on in the house.
And then kwase kuthi lo wesibili wamapartner phakathi khona umnyango ongenela ephasijini wama lapho ngasestofini.
The second one stood in the middle. There is a door that leads to
Ulidele ephasijini.
Oh, so there's a door that leads to the passage, and he stood there next to the stove.
And then kusenjalo ke lo ophambili wama-dreads wasethi wasikhomba ngesibhamu wayesethi khiphani imali namafoni.
And then the one that was in front then pointed us with a firearm and then told us or ordered us to take out money and phones.
Which language was he using?
Wakhuluma isiZulu.
He spoke in isiZulu.
And then kwathi makusenjalo ukhili wabaleka ongena ekamereni.
Was at that Kelly ran into the bedroom,
Ikamera ongelami.
my bedroom.
Are you able to more or less show where the bedroom is?
Yeah, corner.
Photo 64 of exhibit D.
Yes.
Alibonakali
It's
kahle kodwa lilapha right.
It's not that visible, but it's on the right. The witness pointing on photo 64 to the right.
If we can again show you the sketch that's on exhibit D. Can you just indicate more or less where the room is?
The students of this sketch,
Nanti liqondane nekhishi, liqondane nomnyango wasekhishini.
yeah, it's facing the kitchen door.
Yes, may I proceed?
Bese kuthi ukheli mayisengena ekamereni and then lo mlisa wesibili owayeme ngasekhishini wamlandela ukheli evala umnyango yena efuna ukuwuvula.
And then when Kelly ran into the bedroom, the second gentleman that was standing next to the kitchen then followed him. Kelly was closing the door and he was trying to open it.
Can you just show there on the sketch where the second person was before he followed? Kelly?
Image lapha phakathi komnyango wasekhishini.
He was just standing here in the middle of the door of the kitchen door. Witness pointing on the sketch of the door.
And then ke kwasuka umulongo wayehlezi eceleni kwami. Wayesephusha lo besikhombe ngesibhamu ama-dreads.
And then Longo stood up as he was seated next to me and pushed the one with the dreadlocks.
And where was this person with the dreadlocks at that stage when Longo pushed him?
Wahlehla emuva, wahlehlela kancane nje wayela.
He moved backwards and just a little bit and he was here. Witness pointing in the passage of the hallway.
And where in relation to the room where Kelly went into?
So,
And where was this, where did this person with the dreadlock retreat to in relation to the room where Kelly went?
Wahlehla nje walidlula udlula kancane umnyango wabapartner phakathi ney'ndonga before uzofika e-bathroom.
just a little bit and past the door, just in between the walls, just before you get into the bathroom.
Mayiqeda ukumphusha kulongwe, ulongwe wabaleka ophuma ngomnyango wasekhishini.
After Longo pushed him, he then ran and went out of the kitchen door.
And then makusenjalo ngathatha ifoni yami ngayifihla emva kwecushini la kade ngihleli khona.
Whilst at that, I then took my phone and hid it behind the cushion where I was seated.
If we can show you photo 64 again.
Ngayifihla nje khona la.
I hid it here, witness pointing is behind the cushion on the couch.
And then kuthe makusenjalo sasukuma sonke and then safike sadlula nalo obelisa umnyango kakheli sekamereni and then samthatha naye wama-dreads sabaphushela bonke ukuya ngasekumnyango wasekhishini.
Ukuthi namdlula lo ebephusha umnyango.
sithathile naye sahamba
Okay.
naye samdudulela
Okay.
emnyango wasekhishini.
And we then, all of us then stood up. We then pushed them, that is now both the gentlemen, together with the one that was struggling with Kelly for the door, and pushed both of them to the kitchen.
Are you able to perhaps state in which order you stood up and confronted the two persons?
Angisakhumbuli kahle ukuthi ubani wasukuma kuqala kodwa ngabona nje sonke sesinenge inyawo sihamba nabo sonke sibasa emnyango wasekhishini.
I can't remember as to who was the first one to stand up, but what I remember is that all of us we were all on our feet, and we were just pushing them, going with them to the kitchen.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then isithena sekhishini kanjalo sibhizi sibalwisa, and then ngabona i-crush kaDumela ayisebenzisa ime ila phansi, ihleli la phansi eduzane kwe-heater.
Whilst we were there in the kitchen fighting with them, I then saw Tumelo's one crush that he was using. It was there on the floor there next to the heater. Just pointed to photo 64 next to the heater.
And then mangiqeda ukulithatha i-crush ngathi ngiyazama ukumshaya lo wesibili omude, ngithi ngiyazama ukumshaya bengafikeli, and then uTumelo walithatha kumina i-crush kwawuyena oshayayo.
I took the crutch where I tried to hit the tall one with it, but I couldn't reach. And then Tumelo took the crutch from me and was the one who hit the gentleman with the crutch.
You know, if you say the tall one, who is that?
Ilo wesibili.
The second one.
And where was he at the stage when Dumelo hit him with a crutch? In the kitchen.
Wayeseduzane nosinki
Nah.
wasemnyango, umhlane wakhe usemnyango uvale umnyango.
Okay. Next to the sink, he was with his back to the door.
Photo 15 of Exhibit D is shown to you. Are you able to indicate more or less?
Wayemila
Where
kodwa
is
uyena
this?
uvale umnyango.
He was standing here. He's the one who was closing the door. He was pointing
That's
to
photo 15.
Yes.
1-5.
1-5.
Yeah.
So makusaliwa kanjalo ekhishini ngabona noKelly esefikile naye esezosijoyina, kusho ukuthi wayesephumile ekamereni.
Whilst that fight was on in the kitchen, I also saw Kelly also there. I also saw Kelly there, which means she was now out of the bedroom and she joined us in the kitchen.
You indicated where the second suspect was the tall one. Where was the other one, the one with the dreadlock?
Lo ama-dreadlocks wayengaphi eceleni kwa-left, emveni
The
komnyango.
one with the
Emveni komnyango uma uvula.
okay. The one with the dreadlocks was here, was on this side, this pointing to the left picture, just behind the door when you open it.
And the rest of the people, are you able to indicate where Dumelo was, where Ntoko was,
Ungasho ukuthi
and
uTumelo
where your
wayekuphi?
mother was?
Umuntu engimkhumbula kahle ukuthi wayesesayidini nami lakwa-right kwakuwuTumelo, njengoba sasimile lapha phambi kwesitofu.
The person that I remember when that was on my side, that is now the right hand side, was Tumelo, as we were standing there in front of the stove.
The stove, can you just show it on the photo?
Is the stove?
Stove.
Here is the stove, on photo number 15.
Is that where you and Dumelo were?
Yeah,
uTumelo sasinje eduzane kwesitofu.
that's correct. Myself and Tumelo were close to the stove.
Yes.
And then makusenjalo
The others?
Abanye?
laba abanye ngikhumbule kahle, ngikhumbule kahle ukuthi ubani wayemi ngakuphi, kodwa nje sasilokhu silwa ngapha nangapha.
I can't remember well and say who was exactly where, but we were just fighting this side and this side.
And then ithe makusenjalo-ke ngase ngizwa kuqhuma isibhamu.
Was at that I then heard a firearm went off.
And then yafike
Just a minute. Where did it go off?
kulo wama-dreads wayephethe isibhamu lo wayesuka la.
The one with the dreadlocks, the one where the firearm was coming from here, pointing at the door, there's number 2 and photo 15.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then kuthe makusenjalo uma ngisizwa isibhamu siqhuma ngezwa into eshaya phansi kwaphuma isibhaki sangishaya enyaweni lami laka-right.
When the firearm went off, I then heard something hitting the floor, and then the spark went off, and then it hit me on my foot.
Just a minute. If you say you felt something hitting the floor, could you see where it hit the floor?
Angibonanga ngaleso sikhathi.
No, I didn't see it at that time.
Okay. Yes, may I proceed?
And then kuthe makusenjalo kwawukuthi kusho ukuthi mina noDumelo sizinto eyodwa sabaleka umkanye wangena ekamereni mina ngangena ebathroom.
When I heard that hitting the floor, it so happened that Tumelo also heard it, so that we heard the same thing. One in the bathroom.
Mina
Okay.
ngangena ebathroom.
Yeah, no, in the
Mina
camera.
wangena ekamereni.
I ran into the bathroom and he ran into the bedroom.
You just want to show this sketch that appears in Exhibit D. If you can just show the bathroom wherein you went.
In bathroom, there was
Mina ngangena kuyona le bathroom ngana yodwa vele.
I ran into this bathroom, witness pointing on the sketch plan. It's the only one in the house.
And the bedroom wherein Tumelo ran.
Hey, angisakhumbuli kahle ukuthi wangena kuliphi kodwa phakathi kwawo lo amabili.
It's between these two, but I can't remember well which one is it.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then ngathi ngisahleli ke ebathroom ngangime ngenyawo futhi. And then ngakhumbula ukuthi konje kunefastela elise bathroom ngacabanga ukuthi mhlambe mayingaphuma la bese engibona ukuthi ngikhona bese mhlambe uzophinda adubule so
Okay.
ngashona phansi.
Whilst in the bathroom, I was standing or I was on my feet. And then I remembered that there's a window there. If it can happen that the person would come out, might be able to see me and shoot again. So I went down.
Then mangise bathroom kanjalo ngaphinde futhi ngezwe isibhamu sikhala.
Whilst still at the bathroom or in the bathroom, I heard the firearm going off again.
And where was it going off? From where?
Ngangisizwa siqhuma ekitchen.
I heard it going off in the kitchen.
And then uthe makusuka lapho ngezwa futhi sesikhala okwesithathu kodwa kulokhu asengizange umsindo kufana nalokho okunye kokuqala.
From there, I heard the firearm going off for the third time. But now at that time, it didn't. The sound was not as the first one.
And where was the sound coming from of the firearm?
Sasesikhala khona ekitchen.
Still in the kitchen.
And then emva kwalapho ngizwa ngazuthi kuthulekile ngase ngiyapopola ngoba ngandisikwatile etoilet. And then ngapopola ngifuna ukubona ukuthi kwenzakalani.
After that, I could hear that it was now quiet, and I then peeped through because I was squatting in the toilet. So I peeped through just to see as to what was happening.
We just want to show you photo 21 of Exhibit D. As well as photo 22. Yes, maybe this one. Here's the previous one. This previous photo. Yes, this one. It's photo 21 of Exhibit D. If you can just use the photo to demonstrate your evidence.
Ngusela sona siphezulu.
Can you just?
So ngangisikwathe la phakathi kwe-bathtub ne-basin.
I was walking here between the bathtub and the basin. To the photo. Number.
22 of Exhibit D. You can use that photo to illustrate your evidence.
Ngangisquatte phakathi kwe-bathtub ebhekane ne-basin.
This is where I squatted in the bathtub facing the basin.
Umnyango uma uvuleka ngapha nje.
Okay, just where, when the door opens, I was just right there, where the door opens.
And then ngithe mangivula ngithi ngiyakopola.
But just maybe before we proceed, photo 21. Of Exhibit D. You mentioned the door. Can you just show it on the photo?
See,
Na umnyango uvulekela ngaphakathi na.
yes, the door, witness pointing in photo 21, opens to the inside.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then ngithe mangisakopola kanjalo ngipopola iminyango nakhona ngipopolela la ngisquatte khona ngikhiphe ikhanda and then ngabona uSenzo ephophoba kanje eyoyifihla phakathi naphakathi kwesofa ngestand.
Just as I was peeping through, using the door where I was, I then saw Senzo just moving and the witness demonstrating which way
Ephophoba kanje.
like this and going to hid himself between the couch end and the stand.
I'm going to show you the sketch plan of Exhibit D. If you can just once again, where was the deceased when you saw him for the first time?
Wayekuphi-ke la besikhathi ubona
Usofa lo
This is the
engihleli
couch.
kuwona
where I was seated,
and then istand lesiwayiphakathi naphakathi.
and this is the stand he was in between.
But when you saw him in that position where he was crouching as you demonstrated, where was he?
Ngalesikhathi-ke umbona ekhokhoba ngale ndlela uqeda ukukhombisa ngayo, wayekuphi nendawo ngalesikhathi umbona ekhokhoba.
When you saw him for the first time as you were looking, peeping through the bathroom door,
Ngathi umbona, sorry,
Waphuma la ekitchen
he came out of the kitchen
wayeseya edining room wafika wayifihla la phakathi kwestand nesofa.
and went to the dining room and hid himself between the couch and the stand.
what is the distance between the bathroom door wherein you were up to the dining room? The sitting room, sorry.
Angeke ngilazi ibanga ngempela ngoba angaze ngithathe ama-measurements wakhona kodwa mawuse e-bathroom uyakwazi ukubona kahle e-dining room.
I won't be precise or be able to give the exact distance because I've never taken measurements. But when you are in the bathroom, you are able to see in the dining room.
And then tema kusenjalo ngabona uKelly emlandela and then ngabona uma wami naye ebalandela.
While I said that, I saw Kelly following him, and then I saw my mother following them.
Now, where were they coming from? From which direction
Babebuya
was
ngakuphi?
Kelly and your mother coming
Kelly
from?
noma
Babeqhamuka khona ekitchen.
from the kitchen.
And then emveni kwabo ngase ngibona lo qala wama-dreads ebalandela futhi.
And then after them, I then saw the first one, the one with the dreadlocks, following them.
Is following them where?
E-dining room.
To the dining room.
Yes.
And then tema kusenjalo uKelly wafika wama emveni kwaSenzo.
When Kelly arrived there and stood behind Senzo,
And then uma wafike wama eceleni kwabo kodwa ngakulo sofa lo kade ehlezi kuwona.
esezibona yena.
Ehhe.
And my mother stood next to them, but just next to the couch where she was seated.
And then laphana earlier kwakunefoni kaKelly eyayicharger and then ibihlezi nje charging uma wafika wayithatha wayikhipha echarging.
Earlier on, Kelly's phone, okay, I think you come back. Kelly's phone was there on the stand, charging, and then my mother took it out from the charger.
Yes. But when did she take it out?
Khiphe immediately mayiqeda nje ukufika esuke ekhishini ifika la kulanto oza kustand ne-couch kusho ukuthi wayibona ilapho eseyayithatha esathi ekhipha.
Just as soon as she got there, coming from the kitchen, she took it out. She saw it on the stand and took it out.
Yes.
And then mayiqeda ukuyikhipha echajini ngabona lo wama-dreads wafike wamshaya ngendololwane esiswini, and then uma wayiphunyula ifoni wawela esofeni.
Over the sofa. Just after she took the phone out, the short one with the dreadlocks hit her with an elbow in her stomach, and then the phone fell out of her hand and fell onto the couch.
And then ke umlisa lo wama-dreadlocks waseyayithatha ifoni ngambona ejika engazuthi uza ngakumina, so ngaphindela e-toilet ngavala.
Then the gentleman with the dreadlocks took the phone and turned around, not knowing whether he was coming toward me or coming to me, and then I went back into the toilet and closed.
And then ngaphela ngasikhathi esingakanani futhi ngaphinde ngapopola futhi mangipopola ngabona ukuthi kusho ukuthi akazanga kumina, kusho ukuthi uphume ngomnyango.
And then in no time I peeped through again and saw that it means that he didn't, or he wasn't coming towards me, which means that he went out of the door.
And then ngase ngidecide ukuphuma ke ngoba ngiyababona uKelly noSenzo noma balapha e-dining room. Ngaphuma ke ngase ngiyobajoyina la kade kuhlale khona.
I then decided to go out because I could see my mother, Kelly and Senzo there at the dining room. I then went out to join them where they were.
Now, as you're peeping through the bathroom door, did you only see this person with dreadlocks?
Yebo njalo.
Yes, that's correct.
Just want to show you photo 65 of Exhibit D. Can you just use this photo to illustrate where the deceased was, as well as your mother and Miss Kay and your sister?
uSenzo wafika wakuqala ngamadolo,
Senzo got there and knelt there on his knees.
and then emveni kwakhe uKelly wangathi wayemjekile kanje ngamadolo akhe uKelly. And then uma wayela kulosofa la vele ehleli khona.
And then Kelly, it was like Kelly sort of jacked him with her knees. Sort of balancing him, and
Uma wayeme khona lapha kusofa.
and my mother was standing there just in front of the couch.
And the phone that was charging, where was it?
Yayisingasekho bebeyithathile.
It wasn't there anymore, it was taken.
Yes, before it was taken, where was it?
Ngaphambilini kokuthi ithathwe ekuphi indawo.
Angisakhumbuli kahle kodwa indawo iyona le i-charging station esisebenzisayo. Angisazi noma yayiphezu kwestand noma yayiphezu kwesofa.
I can't remember well, but that is the charging station that we're using, so I can't remember whether it was on the stand or the couch.
And then ke mengiphuma e-bathroom ngafike ngapopola ekitchen ukuthi kunobani, ngathola ukuthi umnyango uvuliwe akunamuntu.
When I came out of the bathroom and then I peeped to the kitchen and just to see as to who was there, I then found that there was no one. The door was open and there was no one.
And then uthe mangifika lapha ngizojoyina uma noSenzo noKelly laba mekhona, mangithi ngiyabheka ngabona ukuthi uSenzo uyableed.
When I got there to join my mother, Kelly and Senzo, I then saw that Senzo was bleeding.
He's bleeding where?
Bleeding
Where on his body?
La esifubeni.
here in his chest, the witness indicating.
And then ngithe makusenjalo ngakhumbula ukuthi ifoni yami ngiyifihle emveni kwe-cushion.
Was that I then remembered that I hid my phone behind the cushion.
And then ngaphuthuma ke ngawuphakamisa u-cushion ngayithola vele ukuthi isakhona lapho. Ngathi ngiyazama ukudayila u-10111 ingqondo yavele yafreeza.
I then rushed to there and found that my phone was still there. I tried to dial 10111, but my mind just froze.
Yeah, whilst we're still on photo 65, can you just once again show where you hit the phone underneath the cushion?
Or she said, okay.
Ngiyifihle nje kule-cushion kungemuva.
This cushion where the witness is pointing on photo 65, just behind.
Yes, we proceed.
And then ngabona ukuthi angikwazi ukudayila, and then ngaphuma ngayofuna usizo ngaphandle.
I then realized that I was unable to make a call or to dial. I then went out to go and get help from outside.
Ngagijima ngaya kumngani kama uMaphiri ohlala opposite ngaphuma ngegate. Maphiri.
I then rushed to or ran out of the gate to my mother's friend, Mapiri.
If photo 1 and 2 can be shown to you. Can you just use that photo to demonstrate your evidence? Where is Miss Mapiri's house?
Indlu kaMaphiri opposite nakamakhelwane uKwaNcatshe.
It's opposite the neighbor's house, the Natchez. Natchez.
There where you're pointing, is it whose house is that?
uKwaNcatshe.
Natchez. Those are neighbors, our neighbors, Natchez.
Yes, and is Mapiri's house more or less where is it?
More or less kula.
It's more or less.
Opposite nje nakwaNcatshe.
It's more or less here, something right at the bottom of the photo. It's opposite Natchez house.
Yes.
And then ngaphuma ke ngegate ngeza kwaMaphiri, mangifika khona la estradini kwakunemoto eyayipake lapho la ngabona khona uNthapseng.
Okay. I then came out of the gate as I was approaching Mapiri's house, and then I saw a vehicle there in the street where I saw Ntabiseng.
Who's Ntabiseng?
Ntabiseng.
uNthapseng angazi ukuthi uhlobana kanjani noMaphiri kodwa wakwaMaphiri.
I don't know how she is related to Mapiri, but she is a family of Mapiri.
Yes.
Yep.
Just a minute. Yes, you may proceed.
And then ngabona ukuthi ubhizi khona umuntu ayikhuluma naye khona emotweni ngadlula nganqamulela ngayo endlini straight.
I then could see that she was busy. There was someone she was talking to, and then I went straight to the house.
Which house?
Indlu kaMaphiri.
Mapiri's house.
Mangifika kaMaphiri ngathola ukuthi uMaphiri ungaphandle vele endlini.
When I got to Mapiri's house, I found Mapiri outside the house.
And then ngafika ngamcela ngathi ngicela ukuthi afonele amaphoyisa neambulance badukule uSenzo endlini. Singene abantu. Singene
Okay.
abantu.
I then requested her to call the police as well as the ambulance that Senzo had been shot in the house, that there were intruders.
And then uMaphiri mangiqeda ukumtshela naye waqala waphenika wayesengimezwe uNthapseng ukuthi kumbe kube uyena ofonayo.
When I informed Mapiri, and then she started to panic and then called Ntabiseng that she be the one to make the phone call.
Babili sebaphenika bayakhala ngabona ukuthi usizwa ngilitholi la.
Both of-
Basengivela endlini.
Both of them were panicking and crying. I didn't realize that I wasn't getting any help here. I then went back into the house.
And then ke mangibuyela endlini ngathola umthobo ukhaya noBulelani bebambisene uSenzo bezomfaka emotweni.
And then when I went back into the house, I then found Mtogo, Kaya, and Bulelani as helping each other, carrying Senzo to put him into the vehicle.
And who's Kaya and Bulelani?
uBulelani noKhaya ingane zasenext door kwaNcatshe.
They are the children of the neighbors, the Natchez.
Yes, and once again, if you can use photo 2 of Exhibit D just to illustrate your evidence.
So mina ngathi mangingena ngimala then bona ngababona bewalka besondele emotweni.
When I went to the gate, just behind the vehicle where the witnesses were pointing, and then they were coming, nearing the vehicle.
And the vehicle there on photo, which vehicle is it?
The X6 lebesifike ngayo.
The X6 in which we arrived.
And then ke ngabona ukuthi bazama ukumfaka emotweni kodwa ngazi ukuthi bekunzima, and then mina ngadlula khona kule passage elincane la ngaye eminyango ophambili angisazi ukuthi ubani wayeme kunomnyango wangemuva ngizengene ngaphambili.
As they were trying to put him in the vehicle, I could see that they were having some difficulty, and then I walked. He's now pointing to the left of the vehicle, to the front door. I can't remember as to who was at the back door.
And then ngangena ke nomnyango lo wangaphambili, and then nganqamula phakathi kwamasithi ukuthi ngiye ngemuva, and then ngifike ngizomdonsa from ngaphakathi.
I then went inside the vehicle using the front door, and then I moved in between the two seats to get to the back, so as to be able to assist in getting him inside the vehicle.
And then mangimdonsa ngimfaka ngaphakathi, and then sakwaziyo ukumfaka kodwa khona kwakunzima, and then ngavala umnyango mina ngahlala ngasefasitereni.
Then when I then pulled him to the inside, but it was difficult, but then I closed the door and I sat next to the window.
Which door is it now? Is it the front, the rear door?
Umnyango wangemuva emveni kwa-drive.
The rear door behind the driver.
Yes, and the deceased, where was he placed?
Wayelele nje phakathi nendawo kwesihlalo.
He was just lying in the middle, that is not on the seat.
Which seat?
The back seat.
And then la ngaphakathi emotweni ngakhumbula ukuthi kwakuyimina, uKelly, uMthokozisi noTumelo, noma ngasakhumbuli kahle ukuthi kumele ngithokozise ukuthi kanjani kodwa uKelly wayi-drive, mina ngihleli emva kwakhe efasitereni.
I remember that inside the vehicle it was myself, Kelly, Tumelo, and Mthokozisi, although I can't remember as to where exactly Tumelo and Mthokozisi were seated, but Kelly was driving and I was seated behind her.
And then uthe masahleli kanjalo khona ithawula angazi la kufike nobani. Khona ithawula elifishanyana njengaka ababilisebenzisa ukubeka i-pressure la ebhebhuleke khona.
And then there was a towel. I don't know who brought that towel. It was just a towel this size, this short, and they were using that towel to put pressure on where he was shot.
And then uKelly wa-driver sahamba ke saye Butsilong kodwa wayi-driver egijima endlela esimanga.
Kelly then drove. We proceeded to Butsilong, but she was driving very fast.
You testify that the deceased was loaded on the vehicle and you then left for Butsilong Hospital, and that you were putting pressure where he was shot using a towel. You can continue from there. What happened en route to the hospital?
Alright, sathi sesemotweni kanjalo silokhu sibeka i-pressure esilondeni lapho, and then silokhu sizama ukumkhulumisa ukuthi ahlale evula amehlo.
Whilst we were on our way, putting the pressure on the wound and also trying to speak to him so that he would keep his eyes open.
If you say to him, you're referring to the deceased.
Senzo, yeah.
Referring to Senzo, yes.
Yes, may proceed.
Makusenjalo ngabona ukuthi lokhu kweqamehlo ubheka phezulu.
Whilst at that, I noticed that he was sort of like in open, his eyes wide open and looking up.
Ngalokhu ngiqhubeka ngimthinta ebusweni ngithi Senzo hlala nathi ungayindawo sesiyafika esibhedlela.
I kept on touching him on his face and saying, Senzo, remain with us or stay with us. We are about to arrive at the hospital. Stay with us and don't go anywhere. We are about to get to the hospital.
And then kuthe makusenjalo ngamphakamisa isikibha ngambamba la ngaphansi esiswini. Ngamuzwa ukuthi i-temperature njengoba bengimthinta ebusweni ayisafani nale ngizwa esiswini useyabanda esiswini.
I then lifted up his t-shirt and touched him on his stomach, and then felt that the temperature is no longer the same as when I touched him in his face. It was now cold on his stomach.
If you need any comfort break at any point, just say so.
Are you okay then?
Should we adjourn for a few minutes or will you continue? Please, may we just take a short adjournment?
5 minutes. You still under oath, yeah?
Yes, you may proceed.
Yeah.
sase siyafika ke esibhedlela and then noma singene egeyidini sangena nje sesidlubulundela ne-security sathi siyosayina sibuya.
We then arrived, got to the hospital, and even upon entering the hospital, we just rushed into the hospital, and I told the security that we would sign on when we return.
Which hospital was this?
eButsilong hospital isona esasiseduze.
Butsilong Hospital, that was the closest.
How far is it from your parental house?
Mhlambe mawuthatha i-local ngoba sasinokuthatha i-local siya khona eButsilong mhlambe kunokuthatha 5-10 minutes.
Maybe if you take a local, we usually take locals to the hospital, about 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
Yes. If you can just raise your voice just a little bit. Yes, you may proceed.
And then ke safika esibhedlela ku-reception and then ngabona la kubhalwe khona phezulu kuthiwa emergency.
We then got to the hospital, the reception area, and then I saw where it was written emergency.
Yes.
And then ngase ngiyaphuma ngoba vele ngangihleli ngasemnyango ngaphuma ngagijima ngangena khona e-reception ngafica nje osisi behleli ku-reception.
I then stood up and because I was just seated next to or close to the door, and then went to the reception area, and then I found some ladies seated there.
Ngase ngiyamemeza ngathi ngicela usizo emotweni sihamba nomuntu odutshuliwe.
I then screamed or shouted or said it out loud that we asking for assistance in the vehicle. We are with someone who had been shot.
Yes.
Base bayaphuma ke bephethe umbhede ohamba ngamasondo and then ngababonisa la sime khona. La bake khona.
Okay. They then went out with a stretcher, and I also pointed out to them where we parked the vehicle.
And then ke bafike bavula imoto base bayamkhipha bamfaka bambeka phezulu kombhede kodwa kusumbona ukuthi akasakwazi ukunyakaza bese bemthatha nje elenga bembeka phezulu kwestretcher.
They then took him out of the vehicle, put him on the bed or on the stretcher, but you could see that he was just couldn't move or couldn't do anything, was just hanging there, and then they placed him on top of the stretcher.
And then base bamthatha ke bahamba naye bangena phakathi sase silandela ngemuva.
They took him inside, and then we followed.
Thina ke abasivumelanga ukuthi singene eromini la izoxilonkelwa khona. Base bethi sime ku-waiting room eyayiseduzane ne-pharmacy, I think ngikhumbula kahle.
They didn't allow us to enter the room where he was to be examined. They asked us to wait or to be in the waiting room that was next to a pharmacy, if I remember well.
And then wathi makusenjalo usalindile ngaphandle kwase kufika uma ehamba nolongo.
Whilst we were still waiting outside, my mother arrived in the company of Longwe.
And just for the sake of the record, just put the details of the names of your mother on record.
Usikhonzile Gladness Khumalo. Gladness.
Sikhonzile Gladness Khumalo.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then uma wafike wasibuza ukuthi bamfake kuphi and then sambonisa iroom abangene kulona and then wasidlula waya kulolo room lelo.
Upon her arrival, my mother then asked us where they had taken him. We then pointed out the room to her, and she passed us and went to that room.
And then kwathi nje kungaphelanga isikhathi nesingakanani ngezuma eqhuma ngesililo.
And then in no time, I just heard my mother bursting out in a cry.
So what your mother told is it's not admissible. Did she then make a report to you?
Ngaphambi kokuthi afike kuthina kodwa waqala wakhala ngale and then lasibone khona ukuthi izinto azihambi kahle.
Before she came to us, she first burst out or she cried at that side, and then that's when we realized that things were not going well.
Yes.
And then mayisefika kuthina uma washo ukuthi bamtshelile ukuthi uSenzo akasekho.
What other people told you is not admissible. What did you observe yourself?
Mina uma wafika kuthina washo ukuthi akasekho.
Yes.
So okunye angikwazi.
I don't know about anything else. She told us he's no more.
Is that correct? Your mother then made a report?
Yes.
Yes, what happened further? What did you yourself observe?
And then sonke ke sasesikhala lapho simile sibhlungu.
We were all standing there crying and we were hurt.
Yes.
And then kuthe masihleli kanjalo and then ngabona kufika ubaba Thwala.
Whilst we were seated there, I saw Mr. Twala arriving.
Who is Mr. 12?
Ubaba Thwala ubaba kaLongwe,
Longest father,
Yes. And what is his name?
uChiko Thwala.
Chico Twala.
Do you perhaps know how he happened to arrive at the hospital?
Cha, angazi ukuthi wafika kanjani ngambona nje sefika.
No, I don't. I only saw him arriving.
Yes, you may proceed.
And then makusenjalo naye kumbona ukuthi ulimele emoyeni ngambona ehla ngodonga ehlala phansi mayiqeda ukuzwa indaba ukuthi uSenzo akasekho. Wahlala phansi.
I could also see that he was emotionally hurt. Just after hearing the news that Senzo was no more, he just went down against the wall and sat down.
And then I'm sure futhi emva kwesikhashana nje sithile noma ngazi esingakanani then kwase kufika abafana laba abadlala ibhola beOrlando Pirates base befika noMandisa.
And then after some time, I don't know how much time, but I saw the soccer players arriving, the Orlando Pirates players, together with Mandisa.
And who's Mandisa?
Mandisa,
uMandisa umfazi kaSenzo.
Senzo's wife.
Yes, you may proceed.
Futhi lapho bekunabangani futhi abanye bakaMandisa and then mabefika lapha phakathi bangena bavele badonsa ukheli ngeinywele bamshaya.
There were some friends, or Mandisa's friends were also there. And upon entering, they just pulled Kelly by her hair and assaulted her.
Bethi kuyena usuze wambulala.
As a court, you may not disclose what they said. What happened further?
Bamdonsa inwele zacethuka zonke I think ezu2 ama cornrows awu2 ahlala phansi.
They pulled her by her hair and I think 2 cornrows fell down.
And then ngaya kuMandisa ngamtshela mina ngathi Mandisa lento eniyenzayo ayikho right ngoba uSenzo bengasi umuntu uthanda umsindo.
I then went to Mandisa and said, Mandisa, what you people are doing or what you guys are doing is not okay or is not right, because Senzo was not someone who liked noise.
And then kwathi makusenjalo uKelly wacela ungena ngaphakathi ayibona uSenzo.
Instead of that, Kelly requested to go inside to go and see Senzo.
And then wayesethi ngiphelezele.
She then asked me to accompany her.
Yes.
Sase siyangena egumbini la bebemgcine khona.
We then went into the room where they kept him.
And then uKelly wakhuluma naye
Kelly spoke to him
wasemqabula esiphongweni
and then kissed him on his forehead
wamkhipha amacici kade wafakile.
and removed the earrings that he had on.
I think wayefake newashi futhi walikhipha nalo.
I think he also had a watch on. She also removed it.
Wayesemvalelisa sase siyaphuma erumini.
She then said her goodbyes and then we went out of the room.
And then uthema sesingaphandle sase siyakhuluma nalabo esikade sihamba nabo umthuko noDumelo sasho ukuthi sesiyahamba siye ekhaya ngoba futhi ngiyabona ukuthi uzofika imedia.
When we then got outside, we then spoke to the ones that we came with. the likes of Tumelo and Ntogozisi, and informed them that we were now on our way home because we could now see that the media was also going to arrive.
Sagibela ke emotweni but umthokozisi yena wacela ukusala ngoba futhi wayezana noMandisi.
We then got inside the vehicle, and Ntogozisi remained behind because he knew Mandisa.
Sase sehamba ke siye ekhaya. And then mase sifike ekhaya ngabona la kumele singene khona. Kwase kuvale ngamatheli lana yellow egate.
We then arrived home, and when we arrived there, I noticed that the entrance where we were supposed to go in, it was now already cordoned off with the yellow tapes.
If we can just briefly refer you to photo 1 of exhibit C. Sorry, photo 1 and 2. Yes, photo 1 and 2. If you can just use the photo to illustrate your evidence.
Kwase kuvale ngawona lamatheli wabona khona la.
The cordoned off with these tapes that you see right here.
And then sase sikhethe ukuthi ngcono sipake la eceleni ke.
We then decided to park on the side, witness pointing to where the vehicle is parked.
What time did you leave the hospital?
Isikhathi angisikhumbuli kahle okuyisona sona kodwa kwase ku late kakhulu mhlambe le ko 11 kuya ko 12 kanje.
I can't remember the exact time, but it was already very late, between 11 going to 12.
And then sase sehla ke emotweni saphakamisa ama-tape sangena endlini.
We then alighted on the vehicle and then just lifted up the tapes and went inside the house.
That is now you and who?
Imina no Kelly Noma.
Myself, Kelly, my mother.
And then mase sifike endlini sathola nje kunabantu amaphoyisa abanye be-introduce kuthina beyibiza ngo-brigadier bani bebaningi nje.
When we got inside the house, there were many people, the police, and others were introducing themselves as brigadier, what. There were just many of them.
Kukhona nabanye ke omakhelwane lapho.
There were others as well, the neighbors.
Yes.
And then futhi kwakukhona omunye usisi wayi-introduce wathi uqhamuka ku-department ku-government angisazi kuyona yiphi department.
There was also a lady who introduced herself that she was coming from a government department, and I just don't know which department.
And then ke bahlala nathi sahlala phansi bakhuluma nathi besitshela ukuthi baxolisa ngalokho okwenzakele siqine into kanjalo.
We sat down, they spoke to us, told us that they were sorry about what happened,
Yes.
and also
Yes, it's fine. And what happened further?
And then ngithe mangena endlini mangikhumbula kahle yabona endlini mawuzongena eminyango ekitchen kunesitebhisana esithile esiqala ukuthi ukwazi ukungena endlini phezudlwana nje kanje. And then phansi lapha ngaphansi kwesitofu kwakukhona ifoni kaSenzo.
just before you enter into the house, there's just this one staircase that allows you to get inside the house, and just underneath the stove there was a Senzo's phone was there.
And then futhi mase siqala ukuthi amanye amafoni mhlambe ngabe akuphi, and then ungawakhumbula ukuthi yakhe beyicharge phezu kwesitofu, so futhi bisase lapho.
And when we looked around just to see where the other phones were, my mother recalled that she was busy charging her phone on the top of the stove, and it was still there.
And then kuthe makusenjalo masilokhu siqala endlini, and then phansi lapha kuma-tiles kwakunento engazuthi kushile kanje phansi.
When we looked around in the house, on the tiles that is on the floor, it looked like it had burnt, or that was a burn mark.
Yes. What else did you notice?
umnyango ngemuva wawuhlahlekile.
And then the door that is now at the back, it was damaged.
Which door are you referring to?
Umnyango wasekitchen.
The kitchen door.
Yes. What else did you notice?
And then kwakunesigqoko futhi phansi sesikhoshi.
There was also a Scotch hat on the floor.
Which floor?
Khona ekitchen.
In the kitchen.
Precisely where in the kitchen?
Masondelana nje phakathi kwesitofu nosinki kulolo side le.
Just close to the stove and the sink, just on that side.
Yes. Proceed. What else did you notice?
And then ne-crush lesa sishaya ngayo itumelo nayo yayisale khona lapho phansi.
And the crash that we were hitting Tumelo, it was also there on the floor.
Esasishaya ngayo notumelo.
That myself and Tumelo were using to assault with.
Anything else further that you noticed?
Akusekho.
No.
We're just going to show you certain photos. Photo number 4, my lord, of Exhibit C. We mentioned a step before getting into the house. Maybe photo 4. Let's show the whole of photo 4.
Isona ke lesi step ngikhuluma ngaso.
This is the step I'm referring to, not into the door, the photo.
Can you just use that photo to illustrate your evidence? This photo 4 of Exhibit C.
Nasi isigqoko lesi sasikhona lakhona lapho phansi.
That's the head that was there on the floor.
And then la okushiye khona kwakuphezu eceleni kwale khona angazi noma ivalile angiboni kahle.
I can't see properly. I don't know whether this stone is obstructing the place where I said that there was a burn mark.
And then ifoni kaSenzo sayirecover khona la ngaphansi kwesitofu.
We recovered Senzo's phone right here into the stove, underneath the stove.
Do you still remember what model that was?
Ngathi kwakuyi iPhone 5.
iPhone 5.
iPhone 5.
Yes, we proceed.
Ngehlisele isithombe.
Can you put the phone and pick it up?
Bese kuthi njengoba ubona ukuthi kuneplug la uma ifoni yakhe wayicharger khona la phezu kwesitofu.
As you can see that there is a plug there. My mother was charging her phone right there on top of the stove.
We're also going to show you further photos. Photos 5 and 6 of Exhibit C.
And then nansi icrush kaTumelo
Here is Tumelo's crash,
khona la kitchen.
right in the kitchen.
Any comment?
No, nothing.
Yesterday you testified that you felt something hitting the floor. You felt a spark going off, hitting you on your foot.
Yebo kunjalo.
Yes, that's correct.
And where were you at the stage, if you can show on the photo?
Ngangisenhla nje kancane lapha la ikhishi eligcina khona mawuzosongena epassage.
It is at the end of the kitchen as you're about to enter the passage.
On which foot where you were hit by the
What are
sparks.
you looking at?
unyaweni lami laka-right.
On my right foot.
And did you sustain any injuries?
Kwakukhona nje imark encane eyayiphuma igazi kancane.
There was just this little, a small mark that was bleeding, but it was very small, little bleeding.
Did you receive any medical treatment for that?
Cha ngafaka nje iplaster.
No, I just put on a plaster.
Is there any mark there where you were injured? You perhaps want to, if you can, just to show to the court where you were injured.
Uma ngabe ukwazi noma ungakwazi ukukhombisa ikhodi la wona malakhona.
Can I put? Ngabeka khona la?
Yes, wherever is convenient. Yes.
It is right here in front where the witness is pointing the right side of the foot.
Yes, you may continue.
Okay.
What happened after you made all these observations?
Ngase ngena ekamereni lami lona leli elaliphambi kwekhishi.
I then went into my bedroom, the one which is in front of the kitchen.
Ngafika khona ngathatha ijacket efudumele
I then took a warm jacket.
and then sasesibheka nezingane ngoba njengoba kwakubhizi kanjena nezingane angasazi nokuthi zingaphi.
We also looked for the children because as busy as it was, we didn't know as to which side the children were.
Masabheka kanjalo then ngaya ekamereni ngafica ukuthi khona uma ubebashiye nomama kamakhelwane.
I then went into the bedroom and found that my mother had left them with a lady, a neighbor, or with a lady who's a neighbor.
And then amaphoyisa athi kuthina ngoba isikhathi sesihambile kusasa ekuseni kuzomele sizobhalisa i-statement.
The police then said to us because it was now already, the time had already advanced, it was late, so in the morning we'll have to come and give statements.
Futhi okunye-ke sasingekho kahle emoyeni ukuthi singakwazi ukukhuluma kahle.
And the other thing was that emotionally we were not well for us to be able to speak properly.
Sase sithatha-ke izinto ezimbalwa endlini especially for abantwana uthi ngono-Christian sathatha into zabo zokugqoka zokugeza ukuze sikwazi ukuhamba ukuthi siyolala kakheli emabathini.
We then took a few things or items like in your bath or washing items for the children as well as clothing for us to be able to take them along to Ellie's house in Malberton to go and sleep there.
And then-ke saya emabathini nakhona amaphoyisa as-escorta ngoba sasesisaba.
We then went to Malberton and even there the police escorted us because we were scared.
What time did you leave your parental house?
Nisuke esikhathini-ke ekhaya.
Ngabe sengishilo nje ukuthi bese ku-late kakhulu isikhathi angizange sibheke
As I've already
khona
said,
bese ku-late.
as I've already said that it was very late, I didn't look at the time.
Are we going to take the normal short adjournment or are we proceeding?
Yeah, to proceed. There's no tea here in Pretoria.
Yes, you may proceed.
Sase siyafika-ke endlini sathi ukuhlala kancane and then sase siyolala.
We then arrived and then we sat for a while and then went to sleep.
Who slept at the house in Malberton on the day?
Kwakuyimina, uKheli nabantwana, umama, kwaba uLongwe noTumelo.
Myself, Kelly, the children, my mother, Longwe, and Tumelo.
Nakhona-ke azange silale ngempela ngoba kwakunzima kakhulu.
Actually, we didn't sleep because it was very difficult.
Yesterday you mentioned that after the attackers came into the house, Longwe pushed the attacker who was in front, the one with dreadlocks who had a firearm, and went out of the house. When did you see him again after that?
Hayi angizange saphinde ngimbone.
Didn't see him again.
Yes.
And
During the
then
course of the whole evening?
angizange phinde ngimbone kulobo busuku bonke.
Didn't see him again that evening.
Okay. So when did you again see?
Sekuthi yena loyo cha angisamboni kahle noma nje ngibheka kulabo abakhona angimboni kahle. Umuntu engimbona kahle ilo wesibili omude
No.
Okay.
Are we talking about longer? Sorry.
ngolongo.
Yes.
Kwathi ulongo wahlala ekhaya isikhathi amalanga nje impela.
Longo stayed at our house for days.
Yes. But the question is, did you see him that evening? If so, when did you see him?
Ekhaya. Ekhaya
home.
mayibuya esibhedlela wabuyela endlini ekhaya.
When he came back from the hospital, he came back to my home.
Did you see him at the hospital?
Yebo ngambona
Yes, I
esibhedlela.
did.
Now, after he had left the house, when the intruders came in, when did you see him again for the first time?
Ngambona sefika esibhedlela efika noma.
When he arrived at the hospital with my mother.
Yes, you may proceed. This is what happened further at Maubatten.
Mawubathi ngisahlala nje impela amalanga but ngiyakhumbula ukuthi ngelanga lesibili emva kwesigameko kwafika amaphoyisa esezosilanda ethi esiyobhalisa statement.
We spent some days in Malbatten, but I do recall that on the second day after the incident, the police arrived and told us that we now needed to go and make statements.
Do you remember which day that was?
I think kwakuyi-27 ilanga elilandelayo nje emva kwe-26.
I think it was the 27th, the next day after the 26th.
The incident itself happened on which day?
On the 26th.
The 26th.
Yes, but the day,
Usuku,
the day of the week.
Ilanga nomsuku evekini.
Ngathi kwakuyisonto esizodla Sunday course.
On a Sunday, because it was on a Sunday, we were about to eat a Sunday meal.
Yes. And on which day did you then go to the police station?
Monday ilandelayo.
The next Monday.
And then mabesitshela ukuthi sizothatha i-statement basitshela futhi ukuthi bafuna ukuthatha nama-fingerprints ethu ne-DNA.
When we were going to give our statements, they also informed us that they were going to take our fingerprints as well as DNA.
And then bafuna futhi ukuthi sibasize ukudweba isithombe sabantu laba ngene endlini.
They also informed us or told us or requested us to assist them in drawing an identity of the intruders.
Yes. Did you then make a statement on?
Yebo ngasenza i-statement kwakuyimi futhi oqala ukwenza i-statement.
Yes, I made a statement and I was the first one to give a statement, to make a statement.
Yes. Then what happened further there at the police station after making a statement?
Yini okunye okwenzeka-ke kokuthi ngenze i-statement?
And then mangisuka lapho ke bangifaka kwelinye i-room ukuthi ngisiza ukudweba isithombe sabantu laba ngene ekhaya.
And from there, I was then taken to another room in order to assist in drawing the identity of the intruders or the people that entered our home.
A room and asked to draw an ID kit of the intruders. What happened?
Nami ngafike ke ngathola ukuthi vele khona bese befikile phambi kwami ukuqala ukudweba, and then nami ngafike ngakufaka ama parts la engangakukhumbula kahle futhi.
I then went in and then I could see that there were those that went into that room to draw before me. So I also inserted or included certain features or the witness referred to as parts that I could recall.
Yes. And this was an identity kit of which suspect?
Ngenza kulo wamadress wayifake isigqoko, and then ngase ngiphinda futhi ngongeza kulona wesibili owayifake ihoodie.
The one with the dreadlocks that was wearing a hat, I also added to the one, the second one that was wearing a hoodie.
Now, can you just elaborate? If you say the second one was wearing a hoodie, when did you see that?
Ngakubona mabengena endlini mabeqeda ukulandelana nje befika lapha eDining Room phasitshini.
I saw it when they entered the house just as they were following each other and getting into the dining room, the passage.
Can you just give a detailed description of the suspects?
Lo qala ke waye engemude kakhulu wayephathi nendawo nje
The first one wasn't that tall. He was just in the middle. He wasn't that tall.
Yes.
Enama-dreads efika nje khona la ngasentameni.
He had dreadlocks that his dreadlocks was up to here, to his neck.
Yes.
And then wayefake isigqoko sona lesi bengisikhomba lapha esithombeni.
He was wearing a hat, the one that I pointed out on the photo.
Wayenamehlo amakhulu aphumele ngaphandle.
He had big eyes and they were protruding to the outside.
And then bese ebenama-facial contours engazuthi amathambo akhe ayavela.
He also had facial contours. It was like his bones were appearing, were appearing. Yes. Should I say that the bones were visible? So they were visible. That's the correct word.
Yes.
And then bese wayenesikhumba esicwebezelayo.
He had also a shiny skin.
Yes.
And then bese kuthi lo wesibili
Can you give you a description of the second one?
Okay, come on.
lo wesibili wayemude.
The second one was tall,
Slim ngomzimba.
slim in the body.
Egqoke ihoodie.
He was wearing a hoodie.
And then enentshebe ekekelezela kanje.
He had a beard that goes like this. It's not showing right around. Okay.
Ikona ngikukhumbula.
That's what I can recall.
Now, you testify that when you were requested to assist in drawing the identikit, you added features of the first suspect. What did you add?
Ngafika mina ngafaka kulowo qala ngafaka amehlo
To the first one, I added eyes.
and then ngafike ngalungisa amashiya.
Eyes, if you say eyes, what do you mean?
Uma uti.
Amehlo la amakhulu ayephumele ngaphandle.
The big eyes that were protruding.
Yes.
Yes.
Ngase ngiya-eda isikhumba sakhe esicwebezelayo.
I added his shiny skin. And just before you asked the question, you said that I also fixed the lashes.
The eyebrows.
Also the eyebrows. Yes.
Of the suspect?
No,
The first one. Yeah.
and then nesigqoko.
The hair as well as the head.
Nama-contours.
As well as the contours.
And can you just explain if you say contours? What do you mean?
Kusuke kuwamathambo uyabona ubuso bomuntu makuvela iqhomo kanje iqhomo zi-visible nala futhi ijawline nayo ibonakala.
It is when you are able to see in the person's face that the bones are visible, as well as here on the jaws that you are also able to see. Witness pointing to the jaws.
Sorry, just for my understanding. You said that the bones. What do you mean? The cheekbones? Oh, the forehead?
Okay.
What do you mean?
Ngikhuluma ngey'qhomo ne-jawline konke nesiphongo bekuvela ku-distinctive.
Ngizokubuza because basho ikhomo ama-cheekbones. Okay. Referring to the cheekbones, the jaws, as well as the forehead, all of that was visible.
And then kwase kuthi kulo wesibili ngachaza ukuthi wayemude and then wayenentshebe.
On the second one, I then mentioned that he was tall, he had a beard.
And then ngase ngafika nga-eda nebala lakhe.
I also added his complexion.
Yes, what about his complexion?
Wayengemhlophe wayengemnyama.
He wasn't light in complexion, he wasn't dark. Yebo.
Ilokho ke.
It's that.
Yes, and what happened thereafter?
And then ke masuka lapho base bethi sizodingeka ukuthi basithathe i-DNA.
And then from there, they informed us that they would then have to take our DNA.
Yes, for what purpose?
Bathe bafuna ukuhlukanisa phakathi kwabantu laba bangena nathi besisendlini.
They said that it was for eliminations to differentiate between us, or elimination between us as well as the intruders.
Base besithatha nama fingerprints futhi.
They also took our fingerprints.
And then ke kwase ngalelo langa I think kwase kuphelela lapho.
I think that was it for that day.
What happened on subsequent days?
Kumalanga-
That was on the Monday. What happened on subsequent days?
Kumalanga alandelayo kwase kwenzeka nini?
And then ke sabuyela ekhaya amaphoyisa ayilokhu efika ezosi-update esi-check-a ukuthi si-right na besitshela nokuthi basabhizi nasendlini bayacwaninga.
The police then kept on coming to update us and also to check on our well-being. They were also informing us that they were still also busy at the house just now with their investigations.
And then emva kwamalanga ambadlwana baphinde basilande bathi khona abantu abababambile kumele sizoba identify.
After a few days, they came to fetch us and informed us that there were people that they had arrested and that we should come and identify.
Do you remember on which day it was?
Angisakhumbuli kahle mhlambe lesithathu lesine lapho khona kulolo viki.
I can't remember well, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, during that week.
And then ke masifika khona lapho bathi singene one by one sizobheka ukuthi khona yini sibabonayo.
When we arrived there, they informed us that we would go one person at a time to see whether there was anyone or any that we could see.
Just a minute. And where was this?
Angisakhumbuli kahle kodwa kwakuse Johannesburg eTown.
I can't remember well, but in Johannesburg, in town.
But what type of place?
The police station.
It was a police station.
And who were present on that day?
Umuntu esasihamba naye kwakuma kuyimina kukheli kuTumelo
My mother, myself, Kelly, Tumelo,
ne family friends
and a family friend,
Who's that?
uNox.
Knox.
And before you attended the parade, where were you kept? In which room were you before you attended the parade?
Khona nje room lalinehlalo angilazi ukuthi walisebenziselani but lalinehlalo nje safe sahlala khona.
There was a room with chairs in it. I don't know what the room is being used for, but we got there and were made to sit in that room.
Now, from where you were seated in that room, could you see the venue where the parade was held?
Kulelo room lelo enanihlezi kulona ke nanibona la iparade ebanjelwe khona.
Cha.
No.
Yes, you may proceed. You say it was explained to you that you must go one by one, or one person at a time, to see if there's anyone that you can identify. Is that correct?
Wathi u-officer loyo usho okubonayo.
The officer said, "Say what you see."
And then mengibuka ke lapha eklasini kwakukhona owayelaphayana owayecisha fane nalo wama-dreads.
And when I looked through the glass, there was this one that almost resembled the one of the dreadlock with the dreadlocks.
But when you go there to the venue where the identity parade was held, was he explained to you what you need to do?
Wathi nje uMr Officer loyo shono okubonayo.
The officer only said, "Just say what you see."
Yes.
And then mase ngifika mina laphayana ngase ngiyasho ukuthi lo ngimbona laphayana unawo yeba ama-dreads unawo ama-contours engiwabone kuloyana kodwa kusuyena.
What I then said upon arrival there, that the one that I'm seeing there, yes, he's got dreadlocks, yes, he does have the contours, but it's not him. Yeah.
And then ke ngase ngiyaphuma noma ngiphuma nje ngabona ukuthi kulaba ababambe laphana cha kwakungekho impela ngoba into noma uphuma iyahamba emqondweni.
And as I went out, it was just ringing to me, but the ones that they had arrested there are not them, because even if you go out, but the thing just plays in your mind.
Can you just perhaps maybe clarify the court? Did you point out any person or you just said the words?
Ngacela mina ukuthi bambize asondele khona ngizobuka kahle eduzane ngoba babebekwele kude.
I requested that the person be brought much closer so I'll be able to see, because they were far.
Base ngiyabheka ke ngabona ukuthi khona ucisha fane kodwa kusuka.
I then looked and could say that it almost looks like him, but it's not him.
And then ke nami ngase ngidedela abanye ukuthi bangene nabo babheke.
It was then time for me to allow the others to go in and also have a look.
Was there a way that you could identify the people who were there in the parade? For instance, were there any numbers that you could use to identify them?
Bad number, man.
Ayekho nama number.
Yes, there were.
Ngabizwa number 2.
Yes, there were numbers. I mentioned number 2.
And just for the record purposes, number 2 as being which person?
Number 2 manje umqhathanisa nalo ama-dreads. Ngene eqala endlini.
I was comparing number 2 to number 2 to the person that with the dreadlocks that was the first one to enter the house.
Were there other persons on the parade as well?
Babekhona.
Yes, there were.
Are you able to see more or less how many people were there
Ungasho ukuthi kwakuwa abantu
participating in
abangaki
the parade?
ababekhona kule parade, babe bangaki?
Hayi angisayikhumbula inamba exactly kodwa babekhona babebaningana.
I can't remember the exact number, but they were there. There were quite a few.
And
What
then
happened thereafter?
and then ke emva kwalapho sasesiphuma ke sethiwa sesingakhululeka sekhaya.
From there, we were then we went out, and then we were told we could now go home.
Now, after attending the identification parade, were there other people who still had to attend the identification parade that you came with?
Yebo njalo.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you in any way communicate with those persons
Ingabe wakhuluma
after
yini
attending the parade?
after?
Mase siqedile sesibuyele ekhaya sabuzana nje ukuthi wena ukhona umbonile wonke umuntu wathi cha.
On our way back home, we just asked each other, "Did you see anyone?" And then we all said no.
Yes. But what I mean is, as you were leaving the room, where were you taken to after attending the parade?
Bangikhiphela I think ngaphandle noma towards ngaphandle kodwa angizange phinde ngibuyele kuleli room ebesihleli
I
kulona.
think they took me outside, but towards the outside, but I was not taken back to the same room where I was seated.
Did you make any contact with the persons who still had to attend the parade?
Neither.
Cha.
No.
Yes, what happened then after the parade?
Okay.
Hayi ke sase siyahamba siye ekhaya and then I think emva kwesikhashana noma amaviki noma inyanga angisakhumbuli kahle kodwa kwase kubizwa futhi mina noLongwe kwathiwa siyacelwa ukuthi siye namaphoyisa epolice station.
I think after some weeks or a month or months, they then requested myself and Longwe to go with the police to the police station.
Do you remember more or less which one?
Cha angisakhumbuli kahle.
No, I can't remember where.
Yes.
And then
And you say police station, which police station are you?
Please.
ngabona nje drive isikhathi eside siza ngakhona la ePitori etown.
I just noticed that we drove for a long time and they were driving towards the Pretoria here in town.
And then mase sifika khona kwathiwa singene kwelinye room nakhona futhi basihlohla ngemibuzo uLongwe kwelinye nami ngikwelinye.
Upon arrival there, we were then asked questions or interrogated, and Longwe was in a separate room and then I was in another room.
Then ke kwasekuthiwa bazocela amafoni ethu futhi okwesibili bazowabuyisa.
They then said that they would request our phones for the second time, they would bring them back.
If you say for the second time, were they previously requested?
Yeah.
Yes.
When was it?
Ngelanga lama statement bafika bathatha amafoni.
On the day of the statements, they took our phones.
Did they explain as to why they were taking your phones?
Cha hayi kangakanani bathe nje bafuna imininingwane ophakathi emafonini ethu.
No, not in much detail. They just said that they needed some information contained in our phones.
And then ke bawathatha and then sahlukana kanjalo saya ekhaya.
They took the phones, and then that's how we separated and we went home.
Yes.
And then ke kwathi ngo 2018 ngo February
Then in February of 2018,
sase siyabizwa futhi ukuthi sizokwenza ama additional statements.
we were then called again to come and make additional statements.
Where were you called?
Bizelwa Phosphorus police station.
To Phosphorus police station.
And then safika khona safakwa futhi ema roomini ahlukahlukene.
On arrival there, we were placed in different separate rooms.
It was yourself and who?
Kwakuyimina uma noKelly and then kwathiwa abanye bayeza or abanye bakhona.
Myself, Kelly, my mother, and then we were informed that the others were coming or they were there.
And then erumini nganginabantu besilisa amaphoyisa awu 4 or 5 noyedwa wesifazane.
In the room, I was with 4 or 5 male police officers and 1 female.
Mr. Interpreter, was it 4 or 5 police?
The witness said yes, 4 or 5 male police officers and 1 female. my lord.
Meaning herself, in other words. Okay, I hear you. So there were 2 females.
2 females.
Okay.
Yes, may I proceed?
That's not correct.
And then ke lapho safika intambamanyana nje and then sasesihlohlwa ke imibuzo from ngaleso sikhathi kwaze kwashaya u9 ebusuku.
There we arrived a bit late and we were interrogated up until around 9 in the evening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then ke emveni kwalapho kwasethiwa hayi ke sesingahamba sekhaya.
From there we were then told to go home.
Was the statement taken from you?
Yes.
Statement esathathwa.
Yes, a statement was taken from me.
Do you know the female police officer who was present there?
Cha ngikwazi.
No, I don't.
Yes. Okay, you may continue.
And then ke kwasekuhamba futhi esinye isikhathi eside sasesiphinde siyabizwa ke for i-lie detector test.
And then after a long time, we were then called again for a lie detector test. Yeah.
And then
When was it, more or less?
Hey, angisakhumbuli kahle.
So which
I
year?
can't remember well. Unyaka?
Maybe 2018 2019 khona lapho nje kodwa
Maybe 2018, 2019, around
or
nje,
even
but-
17 angisakhumbuli kahle.
or even 2017, I can't remember well.
Yes.
Saya ke kulelo gumbi kwakuyimina ngedwa no baba nje umlungu omude ngimzimba.
In that room, it was myself and a white gentleman who was huge in build.
Wayesengifasa ke ngentambo lezi zakhona and then wayesengibuza imibuzo.
He then tied me with the ropes and asked me questions.
And then ngaqeda ke futhi akazange asho lutho oluningi wayesethi hayi Miss Khumalo usungahamba.
I then finished, and then he didn't say much, and then said, "Miss Khumalo, you can now go."
Will you perhaps inform what the outcome of that lie detector test?
No.
And then nakhona futhi kwaphinde kwahamba esinye isikhathi I think kwakuwumunye unyaka futhi lapho sasesibizwa futhi kuthiwa sizo role player.
And again, some time went, I think it was another year, and then we were called again to come and do what they said was to come and role play.
Yes, can you explain to the court what that is?
Sabizwa ekhaya Springville la kwenzeka khona isigameko, and then lapho ngafica mina kunabantu.
Okay, we were called to my home in Spruiteview where the incident happened, and when I arrived there were people. Okay.
And then ke uma noKelly balinda kwamaphiri, and then ngangena mina, and then mangifika phakathi, and then u-officer lo wayekhona lapho wayesethi kulabantu abakhona la azenabo kumele ngisho ukuthi mhlambe lo ngimbona as uSenzo, lo ngimbona as the intruder noma.
All right. When we got there, my mother and Kelly waited at Mapiri's house. I then went in. The officer there then informed me that the people that were there that he came with, I should then tell that this one is Senzo, or I see this one as Senzo, or I see this one as the intruder.
And then banikeze nje ama character of abantu ababekhona.
And just give them the characters of the people that were present.
And then ke bese singena endlini khona kokukhona nezinto ekuthiwa ama props njengesigqoko into kanjalo.
And then went into the house. There were things that they referred to as props, like a head, things like that.
And then ke bese kwasekuthiwa singena endlini bese uyasho ukuthi mina ngangimila ubane mila ama intruders angena agcina la into ezikanjalo.
We then went into the house, and then I was then expected to say that I was standing here, so and so was standing here, and then the intruders came in, and then they went into the house up to where.
And then ke ngenza njalo ke ngaqeda kase ngibuyela endlini kwasekulandela umuntu.
That's what I did, and then I finished, went back to the house, and then next person followed.
Yes, so you went to the house, which one?
Mapiri's house.
Yes, we'll proceed.
And then ke sathi mase siqedile ke sabuyela ekhaya.
And then when we were done, we went back home.
Yes. Were there any other developments regarding this matter?
Ekuqaleni babesitshela ukuthi kwenzakalani, and then kwaya kwaphela nje zange sasicontacta ngazi noma yimina ngoba besihlala eThekwini.
At first, they kept on updating us as to what was happening, and as time went, it was just quiet. I don't know whether it was me, because I then relocated. I was now staying in Durban.
Do you perhaps know if there was another docket that was open?
Bengizwa nje indabeni kodwa ngikazi ngitshele umuntu.
No, I only heard about it on the news, but I was never informed by anyone.
Were there any charges preferred against do you know if there were charges preferred against the persons who were in the house?
Angazi.
No, I don't know.
But that question is not clear. Mr. Baroy,
That's good.
I say that question is
I'll
not
try.
clear.
I'll try.
That is double signer. Just
That's a good
clarify, because I can just inform people who are listening. She was also in the house when the people got in. She was also in the house before the intruders got in. So it's got to specify.
That's a good.
Okay.
As far as you are concerned, were there any charges preferred against you?
Awekho.
No, none.
Do you know if there was any documentary made of the incident?
Yebo ngiyazi ukuthi ikhona kodwa ngangengqini yayo.
Yes, I know that there was a documentary, but I was not a part of it.
Can you just perhaps just elaborate a bit what documentary was it and what was it all about? Who produced the documentary?
I-documentary kwakuyi-documentary ye-Netflix eyayenziwe ngempilo kaSenzo nokuthi kwenzakalani ngesigameko.
It was a Netflix documentary on Senzo's life and as to what happened on the day of the incident.
Ukuthi yayenziwe ubani ke cha angazi.
As to who the producer was, I don't know.
Were you ever approached to participate in the making of this documentary?
Beza kaningi futhi kaMbadlwana.
Yes, they came many times, a few times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kodwa ngala.
But I refused.
And did you participate in any television interviews
TV.
regarding the incident?
Umsebenzi wami uintela ama-interviews. So into engenawo amandla wawo ukuthi phakathi ngibuzwane. Kodwa nakhona ngiyaphendula la ngikwazi ukuphendula khona.
My job entails conducting interviews, but what I don't have control over is what it is that I'm being asked inside the bed. But I do answer where I can.
And were there any such interviews conducted?
What?
Akhona.
Yes, they were.
Yes, can you mention?
Noma ngeze kwakhumbula wonke but engikhumbulayo khona uNCA khona namanye ama-radio interviews.
Although I won't be able to remember them all, there was ENCA, there were some radio interviews.
The ENCA interview, excuse me, do you remember when that took place?
Yenzeka last year
Last year,
lapho June July somewhere.
June, July, around.
Do you perhaps know if the proceedings or the previous proceedings were underway at the time?
At least.
Icala bese licalile ngaleso sikhathi.
Yes, the proceedings were underway at the time.
Did the interview perhaps explain to you as to why you had to make an interview when the proceedings were underway?
Ingabe bachazela yini ukuthi kwakungani ukuthi wenze i-interview kodwa icala seliqalile enkantolo? No.
Now, you mentioned that there was damage to the kitchen door. Where was the damage?
Ushilo ke ukuthi isihlahla lesa ngasemuva sasesestation sahlahlekile sahlahleke kuphi nendawo?
Sasihlahleke emveni komnyango.
Behind the door.
I just want to show you photo 19 of Exhibit D. Are you able to use that photo to illustrate your evidence?
Khona la kusemveni komnyango uma uvula umnyango.
This is at the back of the door when you open the door when the witness is pointed.
La kwakume khona ubhuti lwama-dreads beliswaliswa nesibhamu noSenzo.
This is where the gentleman with the dreadlocks was standing and fighting or wrestling with Senzo about the firearm, for the firearm.
If maybe photo 15 can be shown, photo 15. Are you able perhaps to explain to the court what the respective position was? You mentioned that this is where the intruder with dreadlocks was standing where the damage to the door is, as well as the deceased, Mr. Meyiwa. Are you able to explain what their respective position was at that point?
The two of them.
Yes.
Ungasho ushilo-ke ukuthi ila lo nama-dreadlocks kanye nayo-ke umufi babekhona, ungasho-ke ukuthi position noma la babekhona awukuphi nendawo bona bobabili.
Lo ama-dreadlocks umuva wakhe wawu-against isivalo, and then
Sorry. The one with the dreadlocks, his back was against the door. Yebo.
and then uSenzo bebhekene kanje, uSenzo ebheke isivalo.
And then him and Senzo were facing each other. Senzo was facing the door.
And at what point did you see them in those respective positions?
Ungasiphi-ke isikhathi la ubabona khona-ke bemi ngale ndlela oyichazayo.
Kuyilesikhathi lapho sibalwisa khona lapha ekitchen sibalwisa uSenzo eresila naye nesibhamu.
It was at the time when we were fighting them there in the kitchen, and Senzo was wrestling with him for the firearm.
Are you able to use that photo to illustrate your evidence?
Khona la kusemveni kumnyango uma uvula umnyango.
This is at the back of the door when you open the door where the witness is pointed.
La kwakume khona ubhuti lwama-dreads beliswaliswa nesibhamu noSenzo.
This is where the gentleman with the dreadlocks was standing and fighting or wrestling with Senzo about the firearm, for the firearm.
If maybe photo 15 can be shown, photo 15. Are you able perhaps to explain to the court what the respective position was? You mentioned that this is where the intruder with dreadlocks was standing where the damage to the door is, as well as the deceased, Mr. Meyiwa. Are you able to explain what their respective position was at that point?
The two of them.
Yes.
Ungasho ushilo-ke ukuthi ila lo nama-dreadlocks kanye nayo-ke umufi babekhona, ungasho-ke ukuthi position noma la babekhona awukuphi nendawo bona bobabili.
Lo ama-dreadlocks umuva wakhe wawu-against isivalo, and then
Sorry. The one with the dreadlocks, his back was against the door. Yebo.
and then uSenzo bebhekene kanje, uSenzo ebheke isivalo.
And then him and Senzo were facing each other. Senzo was facing the door.
And at what point did you see them in those respective positions?
Ungasiphi-ke isikhathi la ubabona khona-ke bemi ngale ndlela oyichazayo.
Kuyilesikhathi lapho sibalwisa khona lapha ekitchen sibalwisa uSenzo eresila naye nesibhamu.
It was at the time when we were fighting them there in the kitchen, and Senzo was wrestling with him for the firearm.
Now, if just for 1 minute, if you can come back to that identification parade that you attended.
Uma nje singabuyela ke kuleya parade owaya kuyona.
Now, the officer that you referred to, who explained to you what you must do at the parade, did you see if he was taking any notes?
U-officer lo okhuluma ngaye ke owayekutshela ke ukuthi kwakuyini ke ofanele uyenze, ingabe wabona yini ukuthi wayethatha ama notes?
Cha, angibonanga.
No, I didn't see.
Now, except for this identification parade, did you attend any other identification parade?
Ngaphandle kwalena ke ID parade, ingabe khona yini enye ID parade owaya kuyona?
Cha, ayikho.
No, none.
Now, after the suspects in this matter, the accused were arrested, were you afforded any opportunity to identify them?
Emuva kokuthi abasolwa ke uqala ke sebeboshiwe, ingaba khona yini ithuba walinikwa ke ukuthi ubakhombe ngoba identify?
Cha, ayikho.
No, none.
Do you remember whether you stated in your statements whether you would be in the position to identify them?
Ingabe uyakhumbula yini usho noma uchaza kwistatement owasenza ukuthi ungakhona noma ungakwazi ukuthi ubakhombe?
Yebo ngasho ku statement ukuthi uma ngambona umuntu ngamkhomba.
Yes, I did mention in the statement that if I were to see the person, I would identify.
Is it the person or the persons? Mr. Interpreter.
Person.
Hello.
The question was the person of the statement. That's so when uthi abantu noma umuntu.
Ngithe kwi statement ngisabile ngithe abantu mangababona ngoba bebabili ngingakwazi ukubakhomba.
In my statement, my lord, I said that the persons, if I were to see them, I would be identify both of them.
Now, ever since the day of the incident, have you ever seen the people who intruded in the house?
Sula ngaleli langa ke lesigameko ke ingabe wababona futhi noma wabuya babona futhi laba bantu abangena endlini?
Ngibone nje la icourt kuphela.
Only here in court.
Yes, can you explain what you mean?
Ungasho ukuthi usho ukuthini? Ungachaza ukuthi usho ukuthini?
Ecourt njengoba ngilana ngibone nangu ukuthi lapha.
As I'm here in court, ngakhomba kanjalo, I saw the gentleman here.
Which one is it?
Umuphi?
From your left is accused 1 up to accused 5.
Uma uqala ngaku left accused 1 kuyo egcineni ke uyo accused 5.
Accused 2.
Umsolwa wesibili.
You saw as which person?
Umbone yena nanjengomuphi umuntu?
As a suspect number 2.
As suspect number 2.
Yes, can you just simply say suspect number 2, what do you mean?
Suspect number 2 ilo wayifake ihoodie
Suspect number 2 is the one that had a hoodie,
elandela lo wama dreads.
following the one with the dreadlocks.
Now, are there any specific features that enable you to say that accused number 2, it's the second person who was in the house?
So, ingaba akhona ama features akubambe. Sorry my lord. Akubangela ukuthi uthi accused number 2 uyena ke lona owayilandela lo onama dreads.
Ngalo leyasuku ngoba mangikhuluma earlier ngisho ukuthi mina noTumelo njengoba ngangithatha icrash sizama ukushaya yena ulantoza accused number 2.
On that day,
Ngambuka kahle.
all right, sorry. On that day, as I explained that I took the crutch and together with Tumelo tried to assault the person. it was him, and I looked at him very well.
And how far were you from him?
Wawukude kangakanani kuyena?
ikhishi lasekhaya lincane kakhulu.
Our kitchen is very small.
Njengoba ubona ukuthi lapha ey'thombeni ey'ningi ey'dlulile isitofu siseduze kwesinki nesinki iseduze komnyango, so kwakuseduze kakhulu.
As you could see from the previous pictures there, that the stove is close to the sink is closer to the door, so it's very close.
Are there any specific features that enable you to identify him?
Ingaba khona yini ama-features akubangela ukuthi umkhombe noma uthi uyena?
You've already placed the description on the record, but when you see him in court, what reminded you or what enabled you to say he's the person who was in the house on the day?
Ngaphambilini usuwachazile-ke ama-features, kodwa-ke manje uma usumbona ekhodi yini lena ekubangela ukuthi uyena lo owambona ngaleliya langa?
Ubuso bakhe nje bonke ngiyakukhumbula kahle.
Just his whole face, his whole, I remember well.
Ngisho umzimba
His structure, his body,
ne-height futhi uma esukumemile.
as well as his height when he is standing.
Now, did you know accused number 2 before the incident?
Ngaphambilini kwesigameko, ubumazi? No,
Angiyamazi.
I didn't know him.
You mentioned that you bought some alcoholic refreshments at Kwembi's place. Did you self-partake in those alcoholic refreshments?
Ubusushilo-ke ngaphambili ukuthi nanithenge iy'phuzo, ingaba wena-ke waphuza yini kulezo y'phuzo lezo?
Yebo ngaphuza kuleso phuzo.
Yes, I partook in those beverages.
Yes, what did you drink?
Waphuzani?
Ngangiphuza igwarana.
I was drinking guarana.
And how many did you drink?
Ey'ngaki? Waphuza ey'ngaki?
Ngathatha mhlampe 3
I took maybe 3
ngoba sasishara futhi noKelly.
because I was sharing with Kelly.
And what was the state of your sobriety on the day?
Isimo sakho-ke masingasebenzisa nje ilanguage yethu lokhu isimo sakho suka sober nje ungathi sasikanjani?
Hayi ngangadakiwe at all.
I wasn't drunk at all.
We just want to show photo 112 of Exhibit D. Can you just explain as to what you see on that photo?
Uchaze-ke okubonayo kulesi sithombe,
Kulesi thombe nansi igwarana engangiyiphuza.
pointing to the tin, that's the guarana that I was drinking.
And futhi uyayibona ukuthi incanyana ngomzimba kunale Heineken.
And you can even see that it's smaller than the Heineken.
The cell phone that you say the first intruder took, was it ever recovered?
I-cellphone lena othe lona oqala wangena wayithatha ingaba iyatholakala futhi noma yabuya?
Cha, ayizange satholakala. Kodwa kwakukhona umuntu wayelokhu ecela imali ebantwini wazi wayicela nakumina engisendela pretend ukuba uKelly.
No, it was never recovered. But there was someone who just kept on asking for money. That person went as far as even asking that money from me, pretending to be Kelly.
When did that happen?
kwenzeka khona nje evikini emva kwesigameko.
A week after the incident.
And what model phone was this?
Kwakuyi i-Samsung S4.
Samsung S4?
Do you perhaps know the value thereof?
No.
And perhaps just lastly, how was the relationship between you and Longwe?
Sase-right kakhulu mina noLongwe.
Very good, very well, good between myself and Longwe.
Those are the only aspects we wanted to take up with the witness. Thank you.